What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hoops and Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Isaac, and today we're going to start a series where I'll talk about each team for maybe like a couple minutes at a time, and I'll tell you stuff like they should try, like who they should try to get in free agency, maybe, or players that they might lose in free agency. And I'm going to split this series into 6 parts. For people who really don't understand the setup of the league, there's 2 conferences, the East and the West. And then there's 3 divisions in each conference, so each division will have 5 teams in it. So there's 15 teams per conference and then 5 teams per division. So for this series, I'm going to do 1 division per week, and we're going to start with the Atlantic Division in the East. The first team in the Atlantic Division is the New York Nets. And to start off, they did make multiple big trades this season, which did make their team a lot younger because they had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Then they went to younger players like Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, or just like players like that. They went to Spencer Dinwiddie, who is younger than Kyrie. And Mikal has the potential to be an all-star next year. He's a great shooter, but I think that he definitely has the potential to be an all-star next year if he can play at that same level that he played once he got traded to the Nets. If he can play at that same level, he's 100% going to be an all-star. If he could play at that same level, like I said, consistently all year. With that, like I said, great shooting, and he just carried the team, really, I'd say. The Nets also have a lot of tall ball. Their whole starting lineup is tall. I've talked about this multiple times. They have probably one of the tallest teams in the league when it comes to their starting 5. Every single one of their starting 5 players could probably at least run small forward, if not power forward. I'd say probably small forward, just because Spencer Dinwiddie's on the lower side. He's like 5'5", 5'6". I think that they could really use a power forward, though, so that they can replace Dorian Finney-Smith. Because although he is okay, I'd say that there's definitely better power forwards than Dorian Finney-Smith that they could go for. But I think that he would be better to come off the bench for them, and they could play they could use a better person at power forward. Another player who's been doing great for them is Nick Claxton. He really stepped up this year. He hasn't really done it. He didn't do much in the years before this year, but leading up to this year, like I said, he hasn't done good. But this year, he was pretty solid for the Nets. And I mean, I think honestly they just need to wait a couple of years for those young players to develop, and the Nets are going to be even better than they are right now. I mean, they just came into the playoffs as a 6th seed and lost in the first round to the 76ers, but it's the 76ers. The 76ers are a great team. So the only thing that the Nets should try to get this offseason is a power forward, I'd say. The next team is the Raptors, and a big problem for them, I feel like, is that they could use a better center. I mean, they have Jakob Poeltl, but I think that they could use somebody maybe a little better. And speaking of Jakob Poeltl, he is a free agent along with Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent. So all 3 of those players are free agents. Not sure yet if they're going to come back or not. But honestly, I think the Raptors are a good team. They just need to get their team together, and they need to just cause they have great players. Like Fred VanVleet is great. They have OG Anunoby. They have Gary Trent. They have Pascal Siakam, who is all-star. They have Jakob Poeltl, who is not terrible. I mean, they don't need a new center, but if they could get a new center, that'd be nice. But they have, like I said, they have Jakob Poeltl at center. They have Gary Trent, who's good, but they have a couple great, they have quite a few great players, but they just don't put their pieces together, I'd say. Also, I'm wondering who the new coach for the Raptors is going to be. Maybe it'll be Mike Budenholzer because the Bucks did just fire him, I guess. But the Raptors just fired Nick Nurse, so like I said, I'm not sure who their coach is going to end up being. And I think that they could possibly end up trading OG Anunoby this season because when there was talks about the like KD getting traded and everything, the Raptors, I guess the Raptors were gonna offer OG Anunoby and some picks or something, like a couple players, like, and OG Anunoby was one of the players, and they were gonna give him some picks to try to get KD. So maybe OG Anunoby will end up getting traded this season for something good because maybe they just don't want him. I don't know. And the final thing that I'd like to talk about for the Raptors is maybe they could like rebrand because like they really don't fit in with the league because they're like the only team that's in Canada, and it like just doesn't make sense. I feel like if they could come into the United States, I think it would just look better. The next team we have to talk about is the New York Knicks. And I have to start off by saying how great of a pickup Jalen Brunson was for them this year. Without Jalen Brunson, if they didn't get Jalen Brunson, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. No way they would have made the playoffs if they didn't have Jalen Brunson. They have great guards behind Jalen Brunson, like Emmanuel Quickley, but Emmanuel Quickley is not carrying a team the way that Jalen Brunson carried this team this year. He was a phenomenal player. They did lose in the second round to the Miami Heat of the playoffs, but they did beat the Cavs in the first round, so I had them losing to the Cavs in the first round. So the Knicks are a good team, and honestly, I think possibly they could trade like Julius Randle. He's been doing great. Like he's been doing great for the team, but I feel like he had like one really really good season. I think it was last year he was doing really good. But I feel like he's not a very consistent player, like in my opinion. Another major problem that I feel the Knicks have is in 2019 we've seen John Morant go first to Zion Williamson go first to the Pelicans, and then John Morant go second to the Memphis Grizzlies, and then we've seen R.J. Barrett go third to the Knicks. But R.J. Barrett, I feel like he hasn't been getting any better. I feel like maybe has he reached his full potential, or does he just need to go to a new team to reach his full potential? I don't know, but going back to the 2019 draft, now that I think about it, just so that I just had to say something about this real quick. The top three players that were picked, the most successful is probably R.J. Barrett right now. John Morant's about to end his career because he acts dumb, and Zion Williamson just keeps getting hurt. John Morant, when I say he acts dumb, I mean like he just does like stuff that he keeps getting in trouble for, and then he says, "Oh, I'm gonna fix it," and then he doesn't fix it. And then R.J. Barrett, he hasn't been playing anywhere near as good as a third round pick. A third overall pick. Sorry. So that draft class, the top three picks were not doing too good right now. Another thing for the Knicks, though, that I want to talk about is they have a really young roster. They have players like Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin, R.J. Barrett, Quentin Grimes, all these young players who they've drafted in recent years. And all those players are definitely good right now. Not great, but they're good. And obviously, they probably haven't reached their full potential yet. So I like to see how this Knicks team is doing in the next couple of years. And speaking of Emmanuel Quickley, could he possibly win Sixth Man of the Year next year? Because this year, he was pretty. There's a lot of people saying that they did want him to win. They think he was going to win, but it ended up being Malcolm Brogdon. So that's going to be it for the Knicks. Next, we're going to go on to the 76ers. They did come very, very close to getting to the conference finals until that Game 7 where they got their butts kicked by the Celtics. But the 76ers did have a really good playoff run. They made it to the second round, which is pretty good. I mean, before they traded Ben Simmons, they weren't anywhere near as good as they are now. But I feel like James Harden is definitely a good player for them as of right now. But I think soon that we'll see him start to regress, and maybe even next year people will start saying that James Harden's washed. I know that a lot of people are saying oh, James Harden's washed, but I don't think that people really mean that, because James Harden, he just dropped 45 in Game 1 against the Celtics when they didn't have Joel, and he really just stepped up for the team when they needed him the most. And speaking of Joel, they do have the MVP for this year, Joel Embiid, the 76ers. So the 76ers are doing pretty good for themselves, but I think that if they can get a new power forward to replace PJ Tucker, I think that would be a good move for them. If they can get somebody in the offseason and somebody in a good power forward or a big guy in free agency. There is Draymond Green, I guess, in free agency. There's Harrison Barnes. They could get. I think Harrison Barnes would be a pretty good pickup for the 76ers if they want to get a new power forward. But one more thing. Oh, wait, sorry. There's two more things that I want to talk about. Could Harden possibly leave in free agency this year? I think it would be a stupid move for them to for Harden to not come back, because 76ers are a great team and Harden is a great player, so a great team for a great player. And then now the last thing that I want to talk about for the 76ers is, could Tyrese Maxey possibly be the future of this team? He performed great against the Celtics in the playoffs, and he's a great player. He's young. He still has time. He's going to get better. And I think that after Harden ends up leaving, because I'm no doubt Harden's going to end up leaving in the next couple of years, whether he goes to another team or he ends up retiring, Harden's going to be gone within the next couple of years or just on the bench, because he's not within the next 3 years. Harden's not going to be he's not going to be a starter. But so I think that's going to give time for Tyrese Maxey to start getting even better than he already is right now. Once he gets to that probably second choice behind Joel Embiid, I think that Maxey is going to step up for this team and really carry them pretty. I think that they'll end up being probably a finals contender. The final team in the Atlantic Division is the Celtics. So this is the last team that we're going to talk about in this video. And they're having a bad series against the Heat right now, but they could still make the finals. And I mean, I have the Celtics winning the whole thing, but I don't know, because the Heat are doing really good. Jimmy Butler, phenomenal. And even without Tyler Hero, they're going crazy without Tyler Hero. And honestly, he might be their problem, but not going to get too much into the Heat right now, because that's not what this is about. This is about the Celtics right now. And the Celtics have a really nice player that I like, and his name is Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is probably going to be an MVP by 2026. In my opinion, Jason Tatum is going to be an MVP in the next 2 or 3 years. He is a great player. I think personally that Jaylen Brown secretly wants out of Boston, just because I know there's going to be people coming up to me saying stuff. No, Jaylen Brown loves it. Jaylen Brown's obviously not going to say anything, But I think that Jaylen Brown wants to be the star player on a team, and I feel like he has a shadow over him because of Jason Tatum. Everybody's too busy watching Jason Tatum, and they're not watching Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's a phenomenal player. If you really watch Jaylen Brown, he's a phenomenal player. He can play solid defense. He can fly through people. He can shoot. He can literally do anything you need him to. Jaylen Brown is a great player, but they have Jason Tatum. If Jason Tatum wasn't on the Celtics, Jaylen Brown would probably be the best player that they have. Actually, he would definitely be the best player that they have. If Jason Tatum wasn't on the Celtics, Jaylen Brown's easily the best player on the Celtics. Will Robert Williams stay healthy is my next concern for the Celtics, because he does deal with quite a bit of injuries here and there, and he is a great player when he does play, but he has to stay healthy. The Celtics are definitely a great team, and they do have a lot of depth. Like, they have players on their bench like Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon, who did just win Sixth Man of the Year. And he could start if they needed him to, because, I mean, he started when he was on the Pacers. So there would be no problem with Malcolm Brogdon starting if they ended up needing him to. And then the final thing that I want to talk about for the Celtics is, like I've said before, I'm going to say it again. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are by far one of the best duos in the league right now, and probably of all time. And if you don't think that they're one of the best duos of all time, by the end of them playing together, you will think that, because these two players are just a phenomenal duo. You just can't stop them unless you're the Miami Heat. But that's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next Sunday on the Hoops and Stuff podcast.